You want that consistency, in my opinion, between the paid effort and the organic and the website and your in-person presence. And I'm always telling people, like with branding, like we want your brand to look like the way that it feels to work with you. So whether regardless of what platform or how you're showing up, it's like there should be that consistency. Is it the same for paid ads then? Like you don't want to totally deviate from your color palette and your fonts and your logos just to run a paid ad campaign. Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. I have been wanting her on the pod for a while. Melissa is here. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here chatting all things ads.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get into all of it. For anyone who doesn't know you or follow you on social media yet, which plug, you should, Litchfield Media, of course, Melissa Litchfield. So please tell us who you are, what you do, and who you help.
Yes. Okay. So I started my business, I think it's almost 6 years now. I started in 2019. Can you believe that? I
Love
did
that.
come from a corporate job. I was actually working in another different marketing agency. And that's where I pretty much got to be able to see behind the scenes of like these online educators, right? These online course creators, like how they were launching their courses and their programs, to cold and warm traffic. And I got to work with some pretty big people. I'm not going to lie. One of my clients was Boss Babe.
Love that.
And I got to work with Peng Joon and a bunch of other names that may be familiar. So that was kind of my first like taste and iteration of live launching, right? And just running paid traffic for course creators. So obviously that job was kind of toxic, right? I mean, corporate, we think of all the toxic stuff that we had to deal with in corporate, and it wasn't making a whole lot of money. I think my salary was $40K. So, and then I just had to fight or I guess threaten to quit to like even get more or
Wow.
offered like more money, So anyways, I decided, you know what? I think I could do this on my own. Like I think I could just find my own clients and that way I can be a little more picky about who I work with, because sometimes we would get clients through that agency and they were not ideal at all. Like they probably should not be running ads. So yeah, so I basically went all in. I think I had one client that I started with. So I felt like that was a good kind of segue into starting, something from scratch. Like, okay, I have one client. All I need to do is keep adding and building on. And I think I ended that year, probably with like 64,000 just like revenue generated for my business. And I was like, wow, this is something. Like, I think there's something here, right? The fact that not that I was paying myself for 60 plus K that year, but it was, to me, was more money than my previous salary. And I was like, I was only in business for 10 months. Like, imagine a whole year, right? What I can do in a whole year. So that next year, obviously with COVID, right? 2020, COVID. But that actually just made my online business boom. So maybe it was just like the realization that, hey, we need to go digital this year. We need to put more money into advertising since people can't physically, come see us or come through the doors. So yeah, my business boomed. And I think that year was when I hired my first full-time employee.
Amazing.
That following year, I hired my second one. Since then, I've scaled back, but we're still doing the same thing. So yeah, here I am. But we do specifically work with online course creators and online service providers. So that has always been my bread and butter. And then probably within like the first 2 years of business, we started building funnels, right? So like when you're running ads for people and you say like, hey, I think this landing page could be improved, or I think this, the copy's not strong enough. We need to see, take this to your copywriter. A lot of my clients were like, well, can someone on your team do that for me? So over time, it just kind of started off with like a one-off sales page or a one-off email sequence. But over time, it did kind of morph and build into this like, okay, now we're doing done for you funnel build. So
Okay, we're going to get into all that juicy stuff. One of my favorite questions to ask people when they first come on the context or on the podcast to give the context is like, what are all of your current offers, like everything that you offer from free to bite size to signature to VIP? Like what capacity do you help people?
Yeah. Okay. So I do have an educational side of my business, right? It's not just agency done for you work because I do, as you run a business, you find that not everyone's ready for done for you ad management, right? It's an investment. I will say that. I will be honest. Because, when you work with an agency, you're usually working with multiple team members, right? It's not just one person. So I started weaving in like, freebies, lead magnets, workshops, what have you. So I do have a couple lead magnets. One is for ads. One is for, if they wanted to work with us, I want to get a little taste of like what our results look like. I do have a couple, mini courses. I do have an ad membership, and that's kind of like something new I started last year. But I do think it's a great kind of like entry level, starting point if you want to DIY your ads. So yeah,
Mhm.
I have a lot of things from like, free to like entry level, mid level, high, and then it goes into high ticket with the done for you stuff.
Sure,
So
sure, sure, sure. And you said you specialize mostly in like course creators, online educators, service providers. Could you give us some examples of some clients that you've worked with and like what you've helped them achieve?
oh my gosh, so many. I'm like, who do I
I
start
know,
with?
right? Like just pick your favorite, maybe.
Let's start with some recently.
Sure.
So recently there was this huge bench accounting software debacle that happened
Yes. Yeah,
right
yeah,
before
yeah.
the end of the year. And right now Threads is my jam. So I'm usually on Threads. So I basically told, people on my feed that if they were an accountant or a bookkeeper and they, wanted to start an ad because of this whole, bench accounting software debacle, that I was offering 50% off. So I was working with
Mm,
some, bookkeepers recently. I've worked with, health and wellness coaches. I've worked with authors and writers. I've worked with an insurance agent, actually my cousin. I helped him
mhm.
set up some ads and we're doing some lead gen for him, but like we've got awesome results for him as well. So yeah, so many different industries and niches. And I've also had a couple e-commerce clients, but
Cool.
honestly, e-commerce is not my favorite, but I mean, we'll take it if, the client and, it's like a good fit. So yeah, I feel like I've gotten a good variety of different industries and niches, so my experience is kind of like well-rounded. So,
Sure, sure, sure. Sure. I think it's an interesting time to be in the digital marketing space, as we know. By the time we're recording this, it's very early 2025.
right.
And we already know that a lot of the social media landscape is changing quite rapidly, which honestly has prompted our team to think differently about our retainer services. So the way that we describe what we do is purely organic social media content. I do not touch paid with a 10-foot pole because I, number one, never learned it. And number two, did not feel confident in putting someone else's money towards ads that I didn't know what we were doing. And that felt a little too, for myself personally, felt like a little bit of a gamble with their money. And I was like, you know what, let me just stick to what I'm good at. Right. So I'm so glad that you do what you do because I feel like we're very much like yin and yang of each other. Right. Because it's so much back end and it's so much strategy and measuring and A B testing and all these things. But talk to me about how you think digital landscape, like why someone who's never invested in ads before might want to think about paid digital ads in 2025.
Where do I start? Mr.
Right.
Zuckerberg.
I know. Well, this
It's
is
getting
the thing,
harder
right?
to get visible, right? I mean, if TikTok really gets banned, we don't really know, right? Because as of today, when we're recording this, the Supreme Court is hearing their arguments. But I mean, it's getting harder and harder to get visible on social media. So honestly, to kind of give yourself almost that like relief and break, right? From always being on, always posting, always doing this, why not weave in some ads into that? And that's not to say I know the value of organic content, right? And organic
It's
content is and does have a purpose. And I don't think there is no ads without that, honestly, right? Because a lot of the organic stuff feeds into the ad
right.
audiences that you do create within Meta Ads Manager. So, yeah, it's like, it's almost think of it as like a complement, like it's a tool that will complement what you're already doing organically. And it's a way to utilize and kind of almost like speed up and accelerate the efforts that you're doing now, right? Organically. So,
Yeah, I think it's really disheartening for our clients and for myself included to like know that I've worked so hard at building my community. Let's use Instagram, for example. I've built a community of 16,000 followers. I post something, it says seen by 42 people
yes.
and liked by two. And you're like, you're joking, right? Like 16,000 people have told this platform that they wanted to see what I had to share. And I can't even get it in front of the people that want to be here, let alone people that don't know of me yet. So explain how ads, because this is, again, I'm just going to ask you questions out of my own curiosity. How does ads either change or enhance or like kind of alter your reach? Because my understanding, and maybe this is my own naivete, is that the social media platforms are to make money. They make money from paid advertisements. So you put down, let's say you run an ad campaign through a Facebook ad, and you're going to put down a couple $100. That money is going to Facebook, to Meta. They're going to say, we're going to take the thing that you made and show it to the people that you're telling us that you want it shown to. And then you can kind of calculate out your conversion rate or your cost per click or cost per campaign to figure out if that actually converted the right people. First of all, tell me if that's right or wrong, because this is just my own consumption of it. And then on top of that, what does that mean for like running these two things in concert? Because I think the myth going around is that if you start paying for paid ads or start to pay to boost your posts, you're going to then suffer on just the organic content side. But maybe that's wrong.
Yeah, no. I do see the benefits of, I mean, even if you do boost a post, right? Which
Sure.
I would highly not recommend doing because now
Yes.
Apple's doing an extra charge on the app if you want to boost a post. So if you want to avoid that fee, just go to your actual desktop or laptop and do it through Meta Ads Manager. But no, I mean, even if you don't have a huge budget, right? There's I basically have this, like, I call it a micro ad campaign strategy, but it's essentially taking the engagement objective and or
Okay.
awareness, and or say you want to optimize for video views, right? Or you want to essentially acquire more people to watch
Sure.
your videos. Those are really low budget campaigns that you can do right now. You don't need a website to do that. You don't need a lead magnet to do that. You don't need anything really, no service, no offers. But you do need to start building an audience, right? So that could be an option for, if somebody listening, if they're not quite ready to maybe spend even $30 a day, right? Maybe you just want to spend $1 per video that you want to put money behind. So yeah, there's ways to start small. Especially if you're brand new. Obviously, if you're brand new to business and you don't even know what you want to do, probably don't start ads.
Yeah, maybe no.
Right?
Maybe not.
I'm not going to say don't
Right.
do ads if you really don't know like who your client avatar is and you don't have a solid offer formed yet. So, but if you're like in that, 1 to 2 years of business, maybe you have hit that 6-figure mark or you're so close, I do think the micro ad campaign strategy would be like a perfect way to start.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Let's take it back to basics even. So let's say, how can we best prepare someone to work with you? So obviously, they've started a business or they've had the business idea. Maybe they've undergone some branding. A big part of our process is that client demo information, and not only their demographic, but their psychographics. What do they care about? What are they afraid of? What kind of other brands do they engage with? Like, who is this person if you had to write them down on paper? Talk to us about your perfect incoming client. What do they have ready, locked and loaded, ready to go?
Ooh, proven product or service, right? Like
Ooh, love
you
that.
have
Okay.
proof that your service, your offer, your product, whatever you're selling has actually provided results to your ideal client, right? You know their pain points, you know how to agitate it slightly, but also convert, right, into
Sure.
an actual sale. So that's probably one piece, right? That's definitely a check, the first
Big
check
one.
I look for. And yeah, some sort of like branding presence, right? There needs to be some sort of like branding assets that we can go off of in order to actually make visuals that align with their website or their brand. And I do think that really makes the ad visuals really shine, right? When you have like a solid, I mean, you do branding, so
Sure. Sure.
it's like
So
if
when
you
you
don't have
describe
that
it,
figured out, then if you DIY'd your brand, like it's just so obvious, like, and it's really
yeah.
hard to make those images look really professional. So
And you want that consistency, in my opinion, between the paid effort and the organic and the website and your in-person presence. And I'm always telling people, like with branding, like we want your brand to look like the way that it feels to work with you. So whether regardless of what platform or how you're showing up, it's like there should be that consistency. Is it the same for paid ads then? Like you don't want to totally deviate from your color palette and your fonts and your logos just to run a paid ad campaign.
right. Yeah. And some of my clients, they'll experiment with like a different
Sure.
branding per offer, and that's fine. But I think it all kind of, should align, right? Everything should be cohesive. I know just for my own, designer that designs every single like logo thing for Litchfield Media, it's almost like Litchfield Media is the overarching umbrella of the brand. And then we have, individual products and offers that also have their own individual branding and personality. So yeah, that is like another piece that I look for and some sort of like existing audience, right? It doesn't need to be huge, but we do need to have something to work with, right? Maybe you have some decent website traffic. A couple hundred people on your email list is great because then we can export those emails and we can create some custom audiences within Ads Manager. So yeah, I think those three components will set us off on a good
Okay.
start, right? Working together. So
So to recap, that's services, proven offer, good branding, and audience. Those are the three must have, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Then my next question is, what are we driving these ads to? What are you helping people say? Okay, they see the ad on social or on the internet. then what? Where are they going?
Yeah, and it kind of depends on the client, what industry and what they want to sell. But more than likely, they probably have a free gift, right? Or a free training, or a free guide, a free download, a free spreadsheet, something. And think of it as like a gift. And this is essentially a lead magnet or a freebie, free gift. There's so many different names out there in the marketing world to describe this, but essentially, it's a way to build that trust, right? That know, like, and trust factor. Yes, we do that on social media, but this is also another opportunity for you to get them off of social, right? I mean, as an example, we have like the TikTok ban in lieu, like we don't know what's happening. Meta goes down from time to time, God
Yep.
forbid, maybe they don't want to run Meta anymore. We don't know. We don't have control over that data, right? So I think it's super important to not only build a presence online, but also start building your email list, right? And growing that as well, because that's really truly where the money lies. And some of my clients they're really good at that. And majority of the revenue really does come from emails. Like the ads are just like, we're getting them to the email list, right? We're
Yep.
growing the list. We're building and we're targeting ideal audiences, right? That are more than likely to buy. And then my client's funnel converts them. So, I mean, the ads is
Nice.
like the first piece. And funnel is a second huge piece as well.
The example I always love to say to our clients is the one of like when you try to get a kid to try a new food, you have to expose them to that food on average 17 different times before they decide to put it in their mouth. It's like if for picky eaters, right? So if we think about that with your social media or just your marketing content in general, like someone may not be ready to work with you the second that they see your Instagram post or your story or your thread or your TikTok or your whatever. But what you're doing in all those touch points is you're accumulating up to that average. And I think the reason we see high conversion over email is that by the time it comes into your email inbox, you've already been served that idea of working with that person X number of times. And then the email is actually where you follow through and decide to book the thing. Do you feel like that's accurate or did I just make that up?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty spot on. And it's almost like, think of it as like you're getting them to come into your building. Like when I explain
Yeah.
funnels, I usually use my Bath and Body Works example, but like think of
Yeah.
like when you're passing a brick and mortar building, your signs and your marketing that you're putting into the windows, right? That is kind of your attraction that's like your magnet, right? You're
Hmm.
showing, okay, this is what I have to offer. And that person's going to decide. They're going to be aware of what you have, and then they're going to make a decision. Do I want to come in or not? So that's kind of like your
Hmm.
lead magnet, right? That's
Hmm.
our opportunity to say, hey, I have something that's really valuable. I know it's going to either save you time or solve this, one minor issue that you've probably been struggling to fix for the past 3 months or something, right? Here it is for free. All you need to give me is your name and email. I'll send it to an email. But I feel like that first like nurture email sequence that they get plugged into really drives home like the nurture and the value of like what you have to offer versus sporadic posts, right? Online that they may not even
Sure.
see. So I think that's why it's like it's a great way to nurture and ultimately drive sales from your emails because it's more like a focused I don't know how to
Right.
explain it, but it's like a straight linear path versus like, oh, maybe they'll see this on social media.
Right, right. Well, like you said, it's all these things work in conjunction with each other, right? So the more you get into marketing, the more you realize like social media, people used to just say is like one gear of the machine. Now there's like 14 gears within social media, right? There's like your video strategy and your copywriting strategy and your paid ads. Like there's so much even within that that it's a part of a bigger system. And now we're talking also email and lead magnet and document design and opt-ins. And like it can feel really maybe overwhelming for a business owner to be like, I don't know what the heck you guys are talking about. As you've heard me say time and time again on this podcast, what worked in 2024 for social media management is not the same as what's going to cut it in 2025. Platforms are shifting, algorithms are chaotic, and keeping up feels like playing whack-a-mole in the wild, wild west. That's exactly why we made our 2025 social media webinar. This is the deck that we actually sent to our clients. It's 65 slides long. And in the 45-minute webinar, I basically walk you through all the platforms, who owns them, their involvement with the current political administration, what are the pros and cons of each platform, what content performs best, as well as what our team would need for strategy, content creation, and posting and engagement to run the strategy on behalf of your brand. So whether you're a small business owner looking to work with us, or you're also a social media manager or creative just trying to get a better grip of the social media landscape, this is a resource you're going to want to take advantage of. You want to head to our website, mkwcreativeco.com/resources. So mkwcreative.co/resources. This is the 2025 social media webinar. And just for you, I included the one-pager reference guide that we've also sent to our clients to really give you the full menu of options in one big flash sheet. So take advantage of it or hit the link in the show notes to get access to our 2025 social media webinar, because it is wild out there and you shouldn't have to figure it out by yourself. Good luck. Enjoy. So when you're signing on a new client, what are the questions that they're most frequently asking you of like, okay, but how does this get somebody to actually book a service with me, right? Like talk us through some of their maybe like limiting beliefs or hangups on like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I don't know that I understand it, but like, how does it get all the way to money in my pocket?
Okay. So if you are questioning that point, you may not be ready for like a full-blown
There you
agency,
go.
and that's okay. That's okay. But I think it's more so thinking about like it's a customer journey, right? You got to
Sure.
take them on a journey. We're not just trying to sell them right away, right? We don't want to be salesy. We want to be that salesperson. But there are certain and so many connections and points, right, that we are connecting with them through that series of, nurture emails. And maybe we're doing middle of funnel, like retargeting ads to nurture that person off of social or off of email as well on social.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it does work and it's proven, like even like the simplest like lead gen nurture funnel to drive them to do something else. It works and it's proven. So it's like, why not fix what's not broken? You know what I mean?
Sure,
So
sure,
I
sure,
feel like
sure, sure,
people
sure.
might be hesitant to maybe do that because of the tech overwhelm, right? And like, how do I put
Yes.
it together? How do I
Yeah.
integrate it? How do I make this software talk to that? And then how do I trigger this email? So I feel like a lot of people get tripped up over like the actual doing versus like, oh, how is this going to work, so to speak,
Yes, that's the question I was trying to ask. But that's why you hire an expert, right? Like clearly I'm showing my own like I don't know. I have not stepped into this world at all. This is where I think it's really useful for someone like somebody that we work with, because I want them to be able to listen to this episode and be like, okay, I think I get it, but then be able to reach out to someone like yourself, right? Like this is the service that you offer, soup to nuts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes I'll triage things for clients, and
Yeah.
that kinda comes with the nature of the game, right? Like, "Oh my god, it's not tracking," or, "Oh my god, there's no conversions." I'm like, "Well, something's wrong."
Right. Well, and I think a lot of it's expectation setting. So when you are talking to that service provider, let's say that they have one opt-in and two online courses and a one-on-one mentorship style program, right? Just throwing it out there. Like how do you talk them through like, okay, this is a realistic conversion rate. This is a realistic click-through rate. Like, do you have those metrics or does it really, really depend on the client, on the size of their audience, et cetera, et cetera? I would imagine it depends.
Yeah, it depends, but normally, I mean, I can give people like a standard,
Yeah,
the
please.
industry
Yeah.
standard is converting. So with cold traffic, the optimal like conversion rate is usually around 1 to 2%. That's just like
That's
across
such a
the
good
board.
fact to know. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. This is
across
what
the
I'm looking at.
board, I believe email is 1%, usually 1% of your entire list buys sort of
Okay.
thing. Let's see what else. Earnings per lead, usually that's around $30 to $40. It kind of depends
Okay.
on like how warm and nurtured your email list is. Let's see. Let's talk. Well, we could just go through all the standard ones that are off the top of
Please.
my head.
Yes.
Landing page conversion rate. There's a standard that I look for, 30% or higher, right? So that would
Okay.
basically take the total number of leads that you're seeing in a certain amount of time period divided by the total number of page views times 100 to get a percentage. So that's how
Okay.
you can
Nice.
figure it out manually. Let's see what else. I don't know if you want to talk email open rates too, but like I
Yes,
do
please.
look at those as well because again, it's not just like what the ad can do, but like what the funnel is doing, right? So like if I'm running ads for a client and we're doing lead generation ads and there's a tripwire and they're like, oh, like, we haven't got any sales. What's wrong? I'm like, well, let's look at like how many people hit the page and let's see what they're doing on the page, right? So sometimes you have to look even further, especially if there's no conversion. So that's where like a heat map comes into play. You can integrate that on the back end. And essentially a heat map is, it almost is like a temperature check, right? Of like what the traffic is doing. Are they scrolling all the way down the page? Are they bouncing after 3 seconds? That kind of tells a lot too, right? If people aren't staying a whole lot or a long time, to me, I feel like that's a copy messaging thing,
Yeah.
right? Or potentially price. Like, I feel like if they're reading, you're getting all the way down to the bottom. It's like, oh, maybe the value isn't, being portrayed well enough and it
Sure.
could be a price thing. So That's another thing you can look into. And then the average cost per lead. So say like you are running a lead magnet. Right now it's anywhere from like $2 to $4. Like if you're in the B2B space, obviously B2C
Okay.
is cheaper,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
like we're advertising to other customers versus advertising to other business owners. We're a little bit more smarter. And I feel like other business owners, they're not all as inclined to opt into things
Sure.
as
Sure.
much as
Sure.
consumers are because
Sure.
they kind of know, like, okay, like I know what I need. You know what I mean? And they probably have seen other lead magnets on the feed and they're like, oh, doesn't look that great.
Yeah. Yeah. We're a little
Yeah,
judgy, you know?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what
Funny.
you can expect. The one thing I will say, I cannot tell anybody or guarantee, like, oh, it's going to be this it's going to cost this much to acquire purchase. I really don't know that yet,
Sure.
right? Until I start running ads. And if that person has not run ads before to that product, we really only would have probably organic metrics maybe to go off of, which would be good. I would
Right.
prefer that versus having no data at all to go off of.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And then when you're talking all these metrics, you've two kind of major platforms that you're going between, I would guess. So that's Google Pixel, Google My Business backend, and then also the Meta Ads Manager. Is that correct? Tell me which are the tools you're looking through.
Um,
Where are you getting all these good insights?
yeah, I mean, depending on what kind of tech stack you have, obviously Google Analytics 4 would be great. But I know like
Sure.
some softwares like Squarespace will tell you on the back end, like
Yeah.
how many traffic, site visitors you've seen in the past X amount of days. But for example, Google Analytics 4 would tell you, what's your bounce rate, what's how many, users you're seeing. And it'll tell you by page too. So that's kind of where you would get those metrics. But obviously, in order to get like total number of leads or purchases, you would have to log into the back end of those softwares to pull those things manually. Unless you have something like maybe like a third party tracking software like Hyros or Supermetrics. And all those, I mean, it's a lot to integrate that and set up, and it's expensive, but it will give you extra data that Ads Manager obviously isn't reporting on. And obviously it's going to track all those people that opt out of tracking. Because that was a huge thing that happened in 2021 as
Yeah.
well with Apple. Yeah, the whole privacy policy changes. So that has affected, just tracking or reporting in general. But now
Sure.
you can integrate server-side tracking. So that is an option if you're like, oh my God, my metrics, like they're not accurate.
Right. Right. So are you pro these privacy regulations or anti
I don't know.
personally?
Maybe I'm
Yeah,
anti
sure, of
only
course.
because it just
Of
made my
course.
job harder, right? It's like, oh, now I have to in the beginning it was like, oh, we have to verify the domain and then we have to set up all these like aggregated
Okay.
events is what they were calling it. And then they sunsetted those aggregated events. So I'm
Oh,
just like,
totally. I
Meta,
mean, but on the
please
social
rethink
media
your
front
mind.
as well, like now there's rumors going around that Instagram's going to get rid of highlights, and I'm like, you're joking. Like, what? I've been curating these highlights. Been curating these highlights for my clients for so long.
Oh my God, I haven't heard
Oh
of
yeah,
that. Yeah, I only heard of the fact checking this
fact
week.
checking. Yes. So
Yeah, to me, I'm just like,
is concerning.
I don't know how that's going to work because on the
Right.
ad side, there's certain policies, right, that every advertiser has to
Right.
follow with Meta.
Right.
And a lot of them tie back into the FTC. So if they, the new
Mm.
incoming administration, if they get rid of the FTC, then I'm wondering how that's going to affect the advertising policies. Because to me, I'm like, well, if you can say anything you want on the feed,
Uh-huh.
what's the
Uh-huh.
difference in saying anything and claiming anything in your
Uh-huh.
ads, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you
Mhm.
can't have like two opposite positions, right?
Right? Which brings me to my thesis that the first person that can develop a comprehensive media literacy training certification is going to make so much money this year because we clearly need it as a population. People do not like, and it's this whole thing of like, it's this tricky middle ground between like what's free speech and well, it shouldn't be middle ground. What's free speech and what's exploitative? Hello, like that we should know, but who gets to say is what's really curious, and who gets to regulate and who gets to shut down or promote or not promote or all these things. But I mean, these are like the phone scams now are getting so advanced where they can take your voice. I run a podcast. There's nothing stopping a phone scammer from scraping my podcast, using my voice, calling my parents and extorting them for money. Like, so the only thing you can do is continue to educate your audience on like, what are your risks associated with this, right? Like, and also like, what does it mean if Meta goes down? I mean, what does it mean if that goes away? And to your point, email list huge and website traffic huge. We can't neglect those things for social media. It's like we're going to put all our eggs in one basket, and when that basket breaks, which it inevitably will at some point, there will be a day that this does not exist. How do you even start to have those conversations with your clients of like, hey, let's be nimble here, let's be smart here, let's not wait till it happens to us, but be proactive about your ad strategy so that you're future proofing yourself? Are you having those conversations this year so far?
Not yet, but I mean,
Yeah,
in general, I've told a lot of my clients, and this has been over the past, couple, 2, 3 years,
sure.
especially with my clients that have only run ads on Meta. I'm like, let's expand our reach here. Let's try Pinterest. Let's try Google. Like let's not put all of our eggs in the Meta basket because there's options, right? And
Yeah.
especially if that client has like a really or like their ideal audience, is definitely on Pinterest. Like one of my clients
Yeah.
runs a membership for Cricut users. I'm like, hello, we need to be
Yeah.
on Pinterest. I mean, we were on
Yeah.
Pinterest, but I'm like, we need to get back on Pinterest.
Yes, yes. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, no, it makes sense to go where the people are, right? Like I think it's turning into this big mushy like monopoly in a lot of ways of social platforms, and especially TikTok was a great disruptor in that. But if that goes away and everyone's just back to reels again, you're competing for a lot of attention. And I think that's the other thing that people forget with organic social specifically is like you're competing against everybody else that's on there. Like, yes, you're a real estate agent in Milwaukee, every other real estate agent in Milwaukee is also on Instagram. Like, how do we find a new way to get to your people that's not through like all of us trying to be like salmon swimming upstream up through one channel? What would you say to that person that's like, okay, I hear you. Like, let's diversify. What are you thinking? Besides the Pinterest and the Google, like you're recommending, do you kind of put forward the like, here's what like a diversified portfolio of options might look like?
Yeah, definitely. And I would also say, like, okay, how is your content strategy, right? Like,
Yeah,
how are you what are you bringing to the table to differentiate yourself from every other real estate agent out there, right? Do
right.
you have a lead magnet? Probably not. I'm like,
Nope, they don't. I work with them now. They don't.
I know, and they need to. They need
Uh
to.
huh.
Same with insurance brokers, right? Or insurance agents.
Yeah.
A lot of them aren't growing their email list. And I think there's money in the
Right.
list. And you can totally do that with a lead magnet, right? So yeah, and I think it's also how you portray yourself online, right? Like how are you going to
Totally.
differentiate like what you offer as a real estate agent? And I'm sure, real estate agents probably have their own preferences, right? And I'm
Sure.
sure internally they're thinking like, I don't want to niche down because then, I'm like eliminating everybody from wanting to work with me versus like really honing in on like maybe I want to work with clients that have this specific price range, right? Or in this
Yeah.
specific like area, or maybe this specific style of homes. So I feel like, real estate agents just got to think outside the box, right?
Agree.
If you feel
Agree.
like your content and your messaging sounds like everybody else, and that's probably how everyone is viewing your content.
No, completely, completely. And it's also figuring out like, okay, yes, where's my sticking point? Where's my differentiation factor? But also knowing that something like real estate is a long term relationship, right? Like you may not see that lead realized for a while until that perfect house comes about for that perfect client. So, how do you stay top of mind? How do you stay in their world so that when they are ready to make that decision, you're the first person that comes to mind because they've been there with you, right? So
Right.
obviously for like online courses, digital media, like stuff like that, where it's help yourself at any time kind of product, passive product. In that way, it's a different strategy, right? Because it's a different sales cycle, or is it this kind of the same strategy applied to both?
And I mean, it depends on the audience, right? And the
Yeah,
offer. But I feel like, yeah, this sales cycle is always tweaking too, right? We're always like
sure.
tracking the data, like tracking behaviors of traffic. And sometimes it takes a little bit more time, to nurture them. And like you were saying earlier, not every lead that opts in to your lead magnet is going to buy right away. Some of them do, yes, usually 2 to 3%. But down the road, that's not to say like every single lead that I generate for your business is not going to eventually buy from you, right?
Right.
And so if
Right.
you're curious or like wanting to set up that kind of stuff, inside of your business to track that, all you need is a simple tag, right? That says paid traffic or ads, right? So that way at least the tag follows them throughout like their customer journey, right? And then if they do purchase from you, at least you can see, you
Then
can
you
look at that
know.
tag and be like, "Oh, they came from an ad from like 6 months
Great.
ago." You know?
Yeah. We
Yes.
love that ROI. Yeah.
Yes. And
Amazing.
with Meta ads, there is an attribution window,
Of course.
and the max it can go is 28 days. So
Right.
obviously, you're not going to see that kind of like lifetime value from every single lead. So that's why I think it's important to just overall just track your metrics, make sure tagging and tracking is integrated into your business. So that way you
Yeah.
can actually look at your marketing efforts and be like, oh, okay, like I'm crushing it with like the threads traffic. Like let's put more
Yeah.
effort, or maybe it's on Instagram. Let's bump up the ad spend over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. You've been loving Threads, huh? I see your posts on Threads all the time. I'm like, get it, girl. Talk to me
I
about Threads.
do. I
Why
get
do
a
you
lot
feel
of
like why do you
clients.
like it so much better than the other ones? Why is it your favorite child now?
The engagement is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The engagement is not really there on Instagram.
Agree.
And I think it's just I do feel like it's a shift in behavior, right? Social
Yes.
media behavior and consumption. I think
Yes.
we're just kind of over what IG has to offer. TikTok's
Mhm.
is a whole nother different beast.
Mhm.
But I will say I think they were already exhausted of like Facebook and Instagram. And then when, obviously we only had Twitter or X at the time, but then when they introduced Threads in 2023, it was kind of just like, or was it 2022? I can't remember now. No,
Something like
2023.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, 2023. But when they introduced that, it was like, oh, there's no ads here, right? There's no like other distractions.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes there's video shared.
Is maybe
But
that why you like it? You're like, "Oh, wow, I don't have to, like,
I
be
think it's
confronted
a
with
nice,
any ads."
like, quieter space to connect,
Yeah.
right? I don't
Yeah.
always wanna see ads, even though I'm an ads person. I love to
Sure,
see
of
them,
course.
right? But I also want to engage with my community, right? I also wanna, like, connect with people. Like, I don't
Mhm.
wanna just,
Mhm.
like, mindlessly scroll all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
I actually wanna have a
Mhm. Mhm.
conversation, especially if it's someone that I enjoyed talking to and I would love to work with, right?
Totally,
Or maybe they would become
totally.
a great referral partner for me, right? And that's honestly, that's, like, probably the best thing that could happen on Threads. Not necessarily acquiring clients, but
Right.
being known for one thing, and for me, that's
Right.
ads. So it's like if someone
Right.
I have a lot of people tagging me too, right? Like, when people are like, "Oh, I'm looking for an ads person. I'm looking for an ads agency." They're like, "Oh," they're tagging me.
Right
It's
away.
like
Exactly.
yeah. So it's almost like, I feel like it's almost like a fresh start, right, for social media presence. And I mean, I think I did initially come with like 1,200 followers when the app first happened, but like I grew it to 5K. And I
Yeah.
feel really proud of that because like even though 5K like may sound small to you, it's like
No,
the
not at all.
amount of,
No.
for like anyone listening, right?
Yeah.
The engagement though that happens on that app is amazing.
And
So
that's the
to me, it's
difference.
worth it. And I would rather spend my time over there, especially if it's paying off. So, and I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen this, and I've shared this before in a blog post, but I've looked at my Google Analytics, and I've looked at the traffic, and you can see the engagement rate of each different traffic source that comes to your website. Threads traffic has the highest percentage of engagement on my website. It's about 55% compared to Instagram, which is 48. Isn't that crazy?
Okay. Yep. Nope. That's what I'm doing right after this. That's what I'm gonna look at. Yep. That's what I'm doing. I think that the nice thing about Threads, I mean, it always pays to be an early adopter of any social platform, right? Especially if you're very set on your everything that we talked about, your audience, your proven services, like your tone of voice, your brand. Like if you have a good sense of self, it's always a good idea to like go at the very least snag your profile handle and start engaging with people. But I think you're so right. It's like it gives us such this disruption for being absolutely inundated with video and then on top of that inundated with ads from the other platforms. Like even the shift on TikTok from TikTok to TikTok Shop was like, oh my God, here we go. Like I can't even scroll for 5 minutes without being like absolutely hit with TikTok Shop ads, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I've got to imagine that Threads eventually will become an advertising platform. Do you think that that's
I
the case or no?
I think so. I don't know if it will be this
How
year.
long do we have?
No.
How long do we have?
We'll see, I don't
Right?
know.
Yeah.
I would love to start running ads there, but again, it's like, I don't wanna rush it, and I
Yeah.
love the way it is right now. By all means, I'm
Yeah.
gonna savor this. Like,
Yes.
it's like when social media is pure is in the very beginning. So, yeah,
Mhm,
the very
mhm.
beginning.
And if it's getting you that conversion to your website, like, kind of not on accident, but, like, if that's a nice byproduct of being active in the community and having those conversations and building organic reach, like, what more could you ask for? Like, that's even more insights of the type of people that you could help. So I'm all for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and it's almost
I'm
nice to
loving
not
it.
have to be always on Instagram, or
Oh,
always
agree.
somewhere. So
Agree.
it's nice to kinda switch it up a bit and, it's like a low effort post, like, to
Yes.
write something.
Like
Don't
low
need an
amount of
image.
production output. Agree.
Yes, yes. So
Agree.
that's why I like it. And I really did love Clubhouse, and I think that's why I
I did
loved
too.
Clubhouse when it came out, was like, "Oh, I don't have to, like, make a post, I just talk."
Why did Clubhouse die?
I think because I started introducing, like, spaces on Twitter,
Yeah, true.
and then Meta did their own thing. So I just felt like other social media apps were coming for them, unfortunately. There's just so many
That'd
to
be so
compete with, you know?
interesting. Such a case study, like,
Yeah.
I
But
graduated
and then
college in
also, like,
2015.
came right after COVID, didn't it? So I felt like maybe
Yes,
it was timing. That's why it
yes,
took off so fast, and then we all kinda came back to reality, right? COVID was
yes,
kinda over, we're getting back into, like, the swing of things, we're going back to work. I think that's maybe
right.
why Clubhouse died.
Yeah, maybe people didn't have enough time to just sit around and listen. The other thing I think with Clubhouse, their downfall was the people that would just absolutely overrun the conversation, and it kind of became more of like a pulpit, like
Oh
a
my
sermon.
gosh, yeah.
You know what I
I just
mean? And you're like,
remember
"Oh, I
muting
don't know that
people
you're legit."
or yeah, you
Yeah,
had
yeah,
to boot
yeah,
them
yeah.
out of the room or something.
Oh, yeah,
They're
yeah.
just, like,
So
try to,
so
like
interesting.
yeah, they would try to take over your room, and I'm just like, "Dude,
Yeah, this is what?
get your own room.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so
This is
interesting.
mine. I've been here for 11."
Yes, we've seen kind of the rise and fall of so many platforms, and I think that that's what we just have to remind people, like, especially with the TikTok ban or the changes with Meta, is like, all of these things have a life cycle, and that's just part of the exciting world of being in marketing, isn't it?
And that's why we talk about email marketing. It's not going
Uh-huh.
anywhere.
Uh-huh,
Just like
uh-huh,
blogging
uh-huh.
too, I feel like a lot of people are
Yeah,
getting back to blogging, SEO, the basics.
Substack. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
back to the basics is not a bad thing. So
That's true. That's true. Well, where can everyone find you, work with you, get more information, get put into your ad funnel?
I do have
All that good stuff.
a free lead magnet for if you're looking to get into ads. It's a basically almost like a checklist and a guide. So there's several
Cool.
like training videos to help you at least get started and set up, your business portfolio is what they're calling it now. They're always changing things. But yeah, Instagram, Litchfield Media is my handle. I'm the same on TikTok, the same on Threads, and then my
Yay.
site is litchfieldmedia.org. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with us. And guys, make sure you check out the show notes for all those links. If you love this episode, please share the clip, send it to a friend, send it to a client, talk to us on social. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks so much for being here, Melissa. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Catch you next time, guys. Bye.